The unforgiving light of the combat arena has a peculiar way of revealing the truth. It strips a fighter bare, exposing not just their technique, but their soul. Under this pressure, some break, others bend, and a rare breed is forged into something harder, more resilient. It is in this sacred and brutal space that we find ourselves dissecting the career of a man who has become synonymous with that resilience, Dustin "the Diamond" Poirier. A fascinating analysis has reached us, a thesis proposing a provocative idea about what constitutes the true essence of a badass in MMA. The mission here is ambitious, to try and understand what defines that intangible quality that transcends the possession of a golden belt. The central thesis is captivating. It argues that Poirier's greatness lies not just in physical toughness, a quality, by the way, that he possesses in abundance, but in a confluence of three powerful currents: an indomitable will, an almost philosophical disposition for a straight-up fight and calculated violence, and a hard-earned respect both inside and outside the octagon. The final provocation is that Poirier, even without the long, dominant reigns of an absolute champion that mark other legends, personifies the archetype of the definitive warrior. His legacy, the analysis suggests, is built on a different, perhaps deeper foundation. So let's unpack this idea. And to do so, let's start with the basics, with what is undeniable and recorded in the annals of the sport, his resume. To look at the list of men Dustin Poirier has faced is like walking through a gallery of the most notorious gladiators of the modern era. It is not just a list of names, it is a who's who of the sport's most competitive divisions, featherweight and lightweight. The analysis highlights a feat that in itself would be enough to guarantee a place in the Hall of Fame: victories over 5 former or interim champions. The tapestry of his career is woven with the names of Max Holloway, defeated twice in memorable bouts; Conor McGregor, the global superstar, also overcome on 2 occasions; the relentless Eddie Alvarez, the creative and dangerous Anthony Pettis, and the human hurricane Justin Gaethje. The crucial point emphasized by the analysis, and one that deserves to be underlined, is not just the act of winning. It is the consistency in deliberately seeking out the most dangerous fights available. He never shied away, never looked for an easier path. This refusal to flee from the fire reveals more than skill. It reveals a life philosophy, a willingness to test oneself at the highest level, repeatedly, which, frankly, is not for everyone. This brings us to a particularly evocative concept mentioned in the analysis: the triangle of violence, a kind of Bermuda Triangle for elite strikers, composed of Poirier, Gaethje, and Alvarez. And we could even include Michael Chandler in this dangerous geometry. These were men who entered the octagon not just to win, but to trade blows in a visceral way, almost artistic in its brutality. Poirier not only inhabited this triangle, but emerged victorious from his battles within it. The memory of the quote from Eddie Alvarez, a man who never took a step back, echoes with tremendous weight. After his war with Poirier, Alvarez anointed him as the most violent of the group. Coming from a man like him, the statement is not a compliment, it is a coronation. Now, the analysis leads us to ground that at first glance seems counterintuitive, a paradox that lies at the heart of Poirier's legacy. His losses in undisputed title fights. 3 times he reached the mountaintop, and 3 times he found a Dardian who denied him the summit: Khabib Nurmagomedov, Oliveira, and most recently Makhachev. How, logic asks, can losing the biggest fights of your life reinforce the image of a badass? The answer, the thesis argues, lies in looking not at the result, but at the nature of the challenge. The analysis calls this trio of opponents something like the Mount Rushmore of grappling in the lightweight division. Khabib, the undefeated and suffocating Dagestani bear, Oliveira, the record holder for submissions in UFC history, and Makhachev, the air and refinement of Khabib's style. Poirier, an elite striker, swept his own kind. He cleaned out the division of the greatest strikers of his generation. And as a reward for his success to reach the ultimate prize, he was forced to face, successively, the worst stylistic matchups imaginable. His defeats, therefore, do not diminish his status. On the contrary, they contextualize it. They show that he reached the pinnacle, and there did not hesitate to face the most terrifying challenges even when the stylistic math was against him. The fight against Makhachev, a bloody and courageous battle, still earned him the Fight of the Night award. This is not a sign of failure. It is a testament to his resilience and his refusal to choose the easy path. It shows a man who would rather test his armor against a cannon than reign over a field of swords. This mentality is reflected crystal clear in how he fights. Dustin Poirier's style is the physical manifestation of his philosophy. It is an aggressive approach, grounded in technical, pressure-based boxing, executed at close range. He moves forward, corners his opponents, and unleashes fluid and powerful combinations. It is a style that, by its very nature, almost always results in war. The analysis wisely points to the first fight against Justin Gaethje as a microcosm of his career. That night, Poirier absorbed devastating leg kicks, blows that would have paralyzed lesser men. The dry sound of the impact echoed through the arena, a harbinger of pain and capitulation. But he kept walking forward, limping but always advancing, until he found the exact moment to deliver the blow that would give him the TKO victory in the fourth round. It was a display of heart, tactics, and a superhuman ability to endure pain. The numbers, cold and objective, confirm the narrative. 10 Fight of the Night awards, a record that places him at the top of UFC history. This is no accident. It is not luck. It is the direct result of his approach, a quantitative validation of the quality of the spectacle he guarantees. But the analysis, in its most touching part, argues that to fully understand Poirier's legacy, we need to look beyond the lights and the sound of the octagon. We must examine the last and perhaps most important element, his character and the respect he inspires. And this is where the Good Fight Foundation, the charity he and his wife Jolie founded, comes into play. The practice of auctioning his fight gear, gloves, shorts, hand wraps, still marked by the sweat and blood of battle, to raise funds for noble causes in his native Louisiana, is a gesture of immense depth. The analysis mentions that this initiative has already raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, funding everything from playgrounds for children with special needs to backpacks with school supplies for underprivileged students. It is noble, and the respect this attitude generates in the cynical universe of MMA is palpable. We saw this when his arch-rival, Khabib Nurmagomedov, auctioned the shirt Poirier gave him after their fight for $100,000, with the UFC matching the amount. We saw it in the words of Eddie Alvarez, who called him a world champion, regardless of whether he has the belt or not. And we saw it in the Forrest Griffin Community Award, an official recognition of his positive impact. Perhaps the most emblematic moment was after his painful defeat to Charles Oliveira. Shortly after having his dreams frustrated once again, Poirier fulfilled a promise and donated $20,000 to Oliveira's charity in Brazil. This act, in this context, transcends the sport. It builds an image that cannot be tarnished by a defeat. And so, as we gather all the pieces, the portrait that emerges is one of a multifaceted legacy, an elite resume forged against the best, a fighting style that is a guarantee of excitement and battle, an almost mythical resilience to rise from the ashes, and finally, an exemplary character that shines even brighter outside the arena. The conclusion of the analysis is, therefore, inevitable. Dustin Poirier may not have had the long golden reign that many expected, but he has achieved something different, perhaps more lasting. He has reached the almost mythical status of the people's champion, a legacy built not on the gold of a belt, but on the substance of courage, heart, and respect. The phrase he himself popularized, "paid in full," seems to fit perfectly. His career was, indeed, paid in full, with every drop of sweat, blood, and dedication. This leaves us with a final reflection, a question that Poirier's own journey forces us to ask. How do we define greatness? Is the narrative of a warrior who faces everyone, falls, gets up, and still finds the strength to try to make the world a slightly better place, not as powerful, or perhaps even more so, than the mere possession of a title? The journey of the diamond from Lafayette suggests that a true legacy is not something you hold in your hands, but something you build in the hearts of those who witnessed your journey. And that, without a doubt, is a legacy that will resonate forever.